Hello, artists and dabblers. I am Kate from Talcott Artistry, the owner and artist behind our watercolor stationery goods and nifty gifties. Today on our Tuesday tutorial, we are going to be talking about one of the basics, the wet on dry technique. This is a technique that I use for almost all of my watercolor painting, especially the detailed, realistic paintings. It is when you have dried watercolor paint and then you're adding wet paint on top of it. So this is where you get those nice little fine details without things blending around too much. So let's dig in. For today's lesson, you're going to need a large wash brush and a smaller round brush. I'm using a size 6 round brush, but you can use really anything you want, like a 8 or a 4 or whatever. When doing watercolor, you're going to be putting a lot of water on the page, so you're going to want to make sure either you tape your page down or use a block so your paper doesn't warp. You'll need watercolor paint. I use Winsor & Newton professional grade watercolor paint tubes, but any watercolor paint should work. You'll also need a cup of water and some paper towels. All right, here's my workspace. I'm right-handed, so I keep everything on the right. But if you're left-handed, just swap it. Okay, let's make some art. So, we are going to start by animating one of your paints and adding water. I feel like using some Scarlet Lake over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick even wash in the shape of a square. Make a few more spaces on squares on your paper, and feel free to mix up the colors if you want. Okay? So, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of this. Make 4 blocks. And basically we're just getting a nice even wash. This is just so we have background. So this is going to be the dry part. Once this is dry, then we're going to be adding wet paint to it. So this is kind of like a background to your canvas. So have it be a color that you like, whatever sparks joy right now. I'm just doing a couple of squares. You can see that's going to be 2. Yeah, definitely need more water because you can see the brush strokes coming through. So you can always just grab more water from your water cup, fill it in. You know, no biggie. This is super casual. We're just slapping some paint down on the page here. As you can see, these squares are nothing to write home about, but they will do the trick. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and as I wait for these to dry, you can either use a hair dryer if you're impatient, or it might be a nice moment to just take a sip of water, take some deep breaths, look out the window, I don't know, have a meditative moment. But either way, you're going to want to wait till this paint is dry. Okay, so I'm all done with that. I'm going to rinse off my brush and just kind of dry it off there. And now we wait. Okay, so now you're going to get your smaller brush, and I'm using a size 6, and you're going to pick up some color here. I think I'm going to use this Perlin Violet. And what you're going to do is you are just going to paint whatever you want on your square. I'm going to just do some little stars. And this is pretty typical of what you think of when you're painting. Like, just works kind of like a marker. It's going to do pretty much exactly what you imagined it would do. This is a great opportunity to kind of practice your brush strokes. As you can see, it's just something fun and silly. So, we've done this. All right. Oh, and did you guys know a good way to tell if your paint is dry? You can always hover your finger over, and if it feels cool to the underside of your finger, you know your paint is not dry. So a little more patience. Okay, so I did some stars. Maybe I want to try some of these stars. Okay, I've got lots of different stars here. Nothing too exciting or revolutionary, just here it is. Okay. Now, so now on your next square, you're going to play around with the paint to water ratio. So the more paint you have on your brush, the more, the darker the paint is going to appear. So let's say I have a really dark, a lot of paint on my brush. You can see it's pretty dark, okay? But let's say my paint's water, let's say I have a lot of water on my brush and just a little bit of paint. Oops, got a fuzzy. Okay, that line is gonna be a lot lighter. So you still see some of that violet, but you're also gonna see the undercolor showing through. Whereas with this darker line, you really can't see much of the red underneath. So play around, practice, just draw a couple lines, see how it looks on your page. Try to find maybe some ground, some middle ground where you have some that's darker, some that's lighter. Maybe you want to start dark and then make your line a little bit lighter by adding more water. Make like a gradient line. Just play around with it and start practicing. This third square, let's try to do some circles. So this is more of like a brush line practice, but let's practice doing some circles freehand. See how they do. Circles are always tough to do because you've got to control your brush, but we've got a nice little circle here. This one's kind of in the middle ground. Let's make a really dark circle on here. Some nice polka dots. And you can see again, when it's darker, you can't see as much red underneath. But let's make a light one and see. Kind of show off that red layer. You can kind of show off that red layer. You can show off that red layer underneath. So it's just the tiniest hint of purple. All right, and last one is free choice. Practice whatever you want. You can do lines, you can do circles, you can try different colors. Maybe we'll do, I think I might do, let's see, maybe this turquoise. I have a turquoise color that I really like. So maybe I'll do something where I'm crossing the lines. Like this. And then you can see how the lines kind of bleed when you're overlapping the wet color, but it's not bleeding into the color that's already dry. Like here, I'll show you with, you can even do it with a different color so you can see how the purple and blue kind of bleed into each other, but the red layer stays the same. This is when you get kind of wild. You're adding different techniques on top of each other. Woo! All right, there we go. Ta-da! Woohoo! You just made some art. You learned how to use the wet on dry technique to add lots of lovely details to your painting. This is awesome, especially for your realistic paintings, to have this tool in your back pocket. You're gonna be all set. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you wanna get updates, make sure you hit the bell button so you don't miss a thing. If you did this tutorial, we would love to see it. Head on over to Instagram. I'm at Kate Talcott Artistry, and tag us. Take a pic, tag us so we can join you in your art journey. We love, love, love to be able to cheer you on. If you need any additional resources, I've linked all of the materials that we used for today's lesson. I have a link to my tutorial newsletter where you'll get all kinds of bonuses and links and fun things like that. And if you look below, you can also find a list to a blog post where I have all my favorite supplies. So you are covered. Stay tuned for next week's Tuesday tutorial where we learn all about how to do watercolor bleeds. Happy painting!